guys, Julian here, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make Polegroup style techno like Oscar Mulero and Fautzi. As usual, you can get the project file and samples and MIDI and presets, all of that stuff from this video in the description. And if you're a patron on my Patreon, check there because it's already available and has been since yesterday. And yeah, let's get started. So, the first sound we have here is the kick, which sounds like this. So here is the kick. With this style of track, you want to less think about just getting like the hardest hitting kick possible, and more so just getting something kind of warm and round like this. So we've got here is like this 909 style kick. I'll turn off all the processing so you can hear what that sounds like. And yeah, like I said, just really simple, just a 909 style kick, and then I've got to go through a few effects here. So the first thing we have is an EQ8. It's just cutting out a little bit of low mid-range, just making a little bit less muddy. And then we have the rumble. So this is your pretty standard rumble. What we've got here is just the chain with the dry kick. And then we have the rumble on another one, and yeah, what we got going on here is we're using a bit of reverb, and then we're putting it into an amp to distort it, and then that is how you get the rumbly sound, and then you just low pass it. So yeah, pretty simple. With this style, like I said, it's just a little bit different. You know, usually I'd be trying to find a really deep and hard-hitting kind of rumble. In this case, I was going for something a bit more warm and kind of, you know, this has a lot more like low mid-range to it, but it works really well in this style. And so it just comes down to playing with different settings on the distortion and the reverb and stuff like that. I've also got that side chain a little bit to the dry kick. That's how it's going, like, kind of up like that. And the last thing we have on here is this EQ8, which is just cutting out 100 Hz, because even though this does have a lot of nice stuff, like there, we also have a lot of stuff happening here. You can see it's one of the loudest parts of this, and that's also where the punch of the kick is going to be punching through mostly. So we just cut that to make a little bit of room. And yeah, and then the only other effect we have on here is a bit of drum bass. You can see this is on the hard setting, but I don't have it hitting super hard. Like I said, this style of techno, you're not always just trying to make the hardest hitting possible kick. You just want something kind of nice with some nice body to it. So this just helps to give a little bit more of like a glue between the punch and the rumble of the kick. I'll turn it off. And then with it, so you can hear, you know, it just gives it that thing that it needs to kind of bring it all out a little bit more. And yeah, that is it for the kick. The next sound we have here is this first drone, which sounds like this. So what this is doing is just playing this one long note through here. You can see it's just playing F sharp. That is the key we're in. And then what I've got going on is this operator patch. And so with this, you can see we have just 4 sine waves doing FM with each other. Very simple. And you can see I've got them all at different octaves, and then I've got them detuned a little as well. So the detune really helps to give it that crazy kind of metallic sound. If I turn off that, you know, it just sounds like one note, and it doesn't really sound, like, it doesn't have that, like, dark kind of landscape techno feeling like this does. If you really want that, those really, like, dreamy sounds that just you kind of get lost in, this is what you have to do. You want to focus more on making something that's just kind of, like, a lot of sound like this, as opposed to just, like, the specific note. I've also got this going through a bit of a bandpass filter, and then we have this LFO on here. This is moving the pitch of oscillator A very slightly, so that's just giving it a little bit more kind of like a warping feeling. It's also moving the filter a little, and then I've also got this on the volume of oscillator B, so just kind of like moving the sound like that, you know, making it so it doesn't just sit in the same place the whole way through. After that, I've got a bit of chorus to spread the sound out. You can see I've got the feedback up pretty high on that as well, so that's helping with the metallic feel. We're really trying to give these sounds more texture than anything, and not just like have it be like a simple sound. We want it to have like I said, when you hear this, you can clearly tell it's a metallic sound. We want that. Then I have a bit of echo as well as a bit of reverb. These are just giving the sound some space, you know, and really washing it out. And then after that, we just have this auto pan, which is doing a bit of like a simulated sidechain. I do this in a lot of my videos. It's just a nice way to sidechain your sounds without having to sidechain them to the kick, because if I sidechain into this kick, it's not really going to bounce back up like that. It's just going to be ducked out of the way the whole time through. But this way, there we go. It's very similar to how a lot of people use LFO Tool or Kickstart. And then the last thing we have on there is an auto filter just cutting out the low end. And that is it for Churn Number 1. The next sound we have here is Churn Number 2, which sounds like this. This one's actually a really similar sound. You can see it's got a lot of the same processing. This one's a little bit more tucked away in the mix as well. If you listen, you know, you can hear it in there. But it's kind of just working together with the first drone to make like one big sound, if that makes any sense. It's not like you can really hear like this is one drone and this is another one. It's just adding a lot of this stuff into the mix. With this one, it's just like the other one, just 4 sine waves. You can see these are just at different octaves, got them detuned a little differently as well. Got that same bandpass filter, same LFO, everything like that. We've got a bit of chorus, again with the feedback really high to give it a metallic sound. Definitely recommend playing around with that. I learned that one from Zen World. Shout out to Zen if you're watching this. After that, I've got a bit of echo, as well as a bit of reverb. You can see this echo is a bit different. I've got a really slow one. You know, just kind of mixes it up a bit. And then the reverb is also giving it some space. And then the last thing we've got there is that same auto pan with the simulating the side chain. And then just a high pass filter cutting out the line. And that is it for the drone. Like I said, those two sounds just kind of, you know, play together and give us that dark metallic ambience. Next thing we have here is the hi-hats, which sound like this. And so we've got a few different layers here. So what we've got first is this one. So this is 2 sounds, and this is playing that constant 16th note thing. Basically, we have one, which is just a hi-hat sample. Really simple, just like this fat hi-hat. I've got a little bit of bit reducer on here. You can hear what that's doing. And then we've got a bit of drum bus to fatten it up. And then finally, just a high-pass filter cutting out the low end. And then on this one, this is made using Operator, actually. And so you can hear what this is doing is it's kind of jumping all around. It's giving us something a bit more organic. It's like we have the body from this one, but now we have this adding some cool like excitement to it. So this one is made using Operator. Like I said, it's just a bit of white noise going into a bandpass filter. And then the secret here for the movement is I've got an LFO on the bandpass filter on this S and H setting. So it's essentially random. It's just bouncing all around. And this is how we get this kind of thing. So this fits really nicely into the mix. Again, it's one of those kind of like morphing and changing sounds like we like with the style. And yeah, and then I just have a bit of drum bus on that to make it a bit fatter. And then the second layer of hi-hats here is just this one. So you can hear this one is just playing on the upbeats. Pretty simple. It's just kind of like, it's actually kind of similar to the kick. You know, usually I would try to find a really hard-hitting hi-hat for this. But in this style, you know, you can have something a little bit softer like this. And it just kind of fits into the mix nicely. Again, it's not always, in every style of techno, about trying to make the hardest possible sounds. Then I have those hi-hats in a group together, just kind of group processing them, you know. This is what really takes everything, and not necessarily like fattens it up, but kind of brings it into the track. It takes everything from just being a sample or a synth, and like I said, just makes it a part of the track. So the first thing here is just a bit of reverb. You can hear that, just gives it a bit of space. Again, with this style, we want a lot of atmosphere, so the reverb goes a long way for that. Then we have this drum bus. This is gluing these all together. Here's without it. And then with it, so you can hear just bringing everything out and making it all sound really full in the mix. And then the last thing here is just a high-pass filter cutting out the low end, just because sometimes drum bus and these different hi-hats can have that. And yeah, that is it for the hi-hats. The next sound that we have here is this little like rhythmic drum thing. It sounds like this. So it's the kind of thing you hear in a lot of tracks on this label. What this is also made using FM synthesis. FM synthesis is very good for this style. You can see we just have 3 sine waves, all at different octaves, or I guess the last one's really just on a different octave, but they're all detuned differently as well. So that's how you get, again, that like more metallic, interesting sound. If I turn off the detune, it sounds like something from like a deep house track, you know, but when you detune these, we get that cool kind of like metallic percussive feel to it. I've got those all going through a low pass filter. The low pass filter has a shaper on it too. If I turn that off, you can hear what that does, just makes everything a bit harder. Then we just have an LFO slightly moving the filter as well as the volume of oscillator B. So it's like you're getting that movement. You know, with this type of sound, it can be really easy if I turn this off to make it just straight. Over and over. But if you add this, it's making it move and kind of change and evolve a little bit. After that, we have a bit of chorus, spreading the sound out. Then we have this echo on quarter notes, just like a slower echo. It gives it some nice space. Then we have a drum bus to fatten the sound up a little and make it more percussive. Here's without that. And then with it, you can hear it just gives it a little bit more attack, makes it hit a little bit harder in the mix. And the last thing we have on here is just an auto pan, again, just simulating a side chain. And that is it for that sound. It's not that complicated. If you just get started and go crazy with FM synthesis, you can make some really cool stuff if you're trying to make sounds like this. After that, we have this little stab, which sounds like this. So this is the kind of stab you hear in a lot of these tracks. Essentially, this just plays to kind of add something a little bit more like rhythmic. There's a lot of rhythmic stuff here, but this is something that's just heading like on that like that, you know? As opposed to all the other stuff, which is going like straight through the track. This is just playing F sharp. That's pretty much what everything is playing here. That's the key we're in. And for the sound on this one, I made this also using operators. So you can see, again, we just have sine waves, detuned, and at different octaves here. With this one, we play with the envelopes a little, so you can see it gives it, if you give it like that plucky, kind of quick envelope, that's how you get more of this type of sound. You can see, yeah, it just got these at different octaves, detuned a little bit, and that is it for inside of the synth. After that, I have a bit of filter delay, as well as some echo, so I really like stacking delays like this. Especially with sounds like this where it's so sparse. Like it only has that one hit every 2 bars. So you have a lot of space to have some delay and reverb and stuff like that. And yeah, you can just hear like we got the filter delay kind of going back and forth through different ears. And then we have this one adding like a little bit more repeats on top of that. Definitely recommend doing this though. Filter delay is a really great way to get cool rhythmic things, and when you put it into this echo, it adds a lot to this that you just can't get just with programming notes. After that, I just have a bit of reverb to give it a bit more space, you know, kind of wash it out a little, give it some atmosphere, and then the last thing on there is just a bit of drum bus to really make this like a stab. If I turn this off, you can hear it's a lot softer, and it's not going to sit as nicely in the mix. And yeah, that is it for the stab. And then the last thing that we have here is this group of noises. So here's what this sounds like. So as you can hear, these are pretty loud. With this style, the noise is definitely pretty important. Like, you want to keep it in the background still. This is still a background element. But then you can hear if I turn it off, the mix just doesn't have as much texture and atmosphere. This is really important for adding that kind of atmosphere that you hear in these tracks. So what I've got here is I've got a vinyl noise. And then I have this sort of like industrial noise. And then you can see I put them in a group together, and then we've got them being bandpass. The bandpass filter is set like this, and then I've got an LFO on that. So it's moving. So you can hear without that, it's kind of harsh. And it doesn't have any motion to it, but with this, you can hear it moving, and I hear this in a lot of Oscar Mulero's tracks as well. Like, he'll have like a noise like this that's kind of just slowly morphing. You know, it's not just staying in the same place the whole way through. So this is definitely the technique if you want to get that kind of sound. Then after that, we have a bit of drum bus. This glues these together and makes them a bit just kind of stronger. You kind of need to do this. Like, a lot of times if you don't do this, it's just not going to hold up in the mix. It's just going to get lost in the background. After that, I've got a bit of auto pan, again, just simulating the side chain. And then the last thing we have on here is this EQ8, which looks pretty crazy because it's boosting up the high end a lot. But here's without it. And then with it. So this is really more for sound design than anything. You know, it's like when you're mixing, obviously you don't want to do this sharp of a boost with EQ. But in this case, because it's just for sound design, essentially, and just kind of like making it sound like we want it to sound, you know, anything goes. So this is just boosting the high end a bunch. And making sure you really get that bright kind of like in the mix. And yeah, so that's me for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed. As always, make sure to like this video as well as subscribe. And let me know what you think of this video in the comments. Like I said in the beginning, you can get the project file and samples and MIDI and presets, everything that you just saw from this video in the description. And if you're a patron on my Patreon, check there because it's already available. Thank you so much, guys, and I will see you tomorrow with another video.